Well, thanks, Liam, for taking a bit of time out. I'm sure it was a busy day. Spend a bit of time to spend some time with us and give us a bit of your own thoughts. So, just to kick off, if you could tell us a little bit about who you are and how you founded the company.
Yeah, sure. No, you're right. I mean, it's such a busy time of year. So, with Christmas coming up, I always find at this time of year, energy levels just start to kind of dip off as the Christmas breaks come in. So, yeah, and I'm looking forward to a bit of a break over Christmas. So I'm Liam. I'm the founder of Plus Heat. We are on a mission to make homeowners feel at home in their home. And build the most trusted home services provider in the UK in the process. So product, our core product offering is our range of service plans, which have been designed to provide comfort, warmth, and peace of mind. So yeah, that's
Okay.
a bit about us.
No, that's brilliant. And you founded it about 8 years ago. How did this come about? Were you in the game already, or what? How did this come about?
So I'd always been uh, quite entrepreneurial. I remember as young as 12 offering a takeaway delivery service for friends and family. That's why I claimed delivery was actually my idea, but obviously didn't trademark it in time. Um, uh, when I was 13, I did a paper delivery for the local newspaper, and I remember one morning there was snow in the UK. There was however many inches of snow. School was off, so I've used that as the opportunity to go and get my paper round done. And there's a few shops on the route that I delivered to, and so I was kind of trudging through the snow, uh, gloves on, and I went into this electrical store. And I think the guy behind the counter was really surprised to see me, given the weather conditions. Um, and he asked me. We had a little conversation, and he said, "Do you do leaflet delivery?" And of course, I hadn't done any leaflet delivery. I just delivered the paper. But I said, yeah, sure, I can do that for you. And I hadn't worked out how I was going to price it or anything else. And he said, come back this afternoon and I'll give you some leaflets to deliver. So I called a friend, my first hire, if you like, and we went back that afternoon and picked up the leaflets. And I went to all of the other shops on the road to see if they needed any leaflets delivering as well. And so that was my kind of first business venture, if you like. But it wasn't until years later, I was uh, 18, I decided I didn't want to go to university, and I got a job in telesales where I learned how to sell over the phone. And I think that was probably one of the best skills I could have learned. I was in the heating industry, and in my time at that role, I spoke to hundreds of customers, and I identified a gap in the market for a peace of mind product that provided good customer service, answered the phone quickly, and uh, got things fixed quickly. And I think being young and naive at the time, I thought it was going to be much easier than it was. I was 19 when I handed in my notice to to start the business. And then yeah, the rest was history.
Fantastic. It must have been interesting because most people think, how on earth would you manage to have a UK-wide network of doing this, what you're doing? And that must have been quite an interesting challenge. How did you solve that? Because somebody would say it's okay if it's local, maybe you could get a few people, but if they said, "Well, I'm in Scotland or I'm in Cornwall or somewhere," how did you deal with that national challenge?
So we built our network very organically to begin with. We would find contractors online, looking at reviews to find the best people. And in the beginning, it was as much of a sale to onboard the engineers onto our network as it was to acquire the customers. We didn't have much of a track record, so but it was very much built on personal relationships. So I would call the engineers myself. Um, we would often have to do things like paying them in advance to begin with to get them to agree to work with us. And once we had started to build a bit of a relationship, then yeah, then things started to work a bit better. Um,
Brilliant, excellent, interesting. So In terms of standing out from your competitors, then what do you think is your sort of golden thing? Is it that quality customer service? Is that what you really pride yourself on?
Absolutely. We are, you know, openly, we're not trying to be the next home server or British Gas. We want to be the most trusted home services provider in the UK. So we're really focused on that trust element. Since June, on Trustpilot, we have been the second highest rated company in our industry, and that has really spurred us on as a team to make, improve as we know we can to make sure that we're the best. So that's our main goal for 2025.
That's pretty cool. I did look, and you had 10,000 reviews, and 4.5 average was pretty cool. Because in your industry, as you know, there's lots of concerns in construction and people who do maintenance and stuff. Oh, is the guy going to turn up? Oh, is he going to, there's that the cowboy question, isn't it? That belief that is anybody going to come when I need them? It's freezing cold and it's a few days before Christmas. I need my boiler working. So yeah, I really get that. Absolutely get it. So what do you think is some of your biggest learnings in being running this company over the last 8 years? You must have had some challenges, ups and downs, and different things happening.
Oh yeah, no, that's a big question. I think just learning what good looks like. So being so young when I left my previous role, uh, the first few years of running the business, I knew when I was providing the service, I would provide, the very best customer service that I could. But as we started to build a team, it took me a while to learn what good looked like, when building a team. And anyone who's run a business will tell you that show me the quality of your team, and they'll be able to tell you the quality of the business. So the team is so important. It took us a while to get all of that right. But other than that, I guess it's fairly kind of stereotypical, but perseverance is such a big thing. When I
Mm,
look back, so 2024, I'm very grateful has been our best year yet by a long way. Many milestones were achieved, but the 7 years leading up to this year all had were all marked by major challenges, major hurdles to overcome. And I've just learned that the challenge is a sign that you're on the right path. You're doing something big. You're doing something that a path that isn't well trodden, or that others haven't done before. So
yeah, yeah.
it's important to
But
persevere through the hard times.
yeah, just keep going. Most people have that message about you got to keep playing on. One of the things would be interesting to know is what do you have a typical day? Is there a typical day in the life of the CEO of your company?
So I mean, every day is very different. But I do like to have my kind of routines just to keep some consistency throughout my week. So I mean, I don't have, massive morning routine or anything like that, but my alarm goes off at 6 every day. I always like to exercise every day. I probably exercise 6 or 7 times a week. And I like to exercise in the morning because I feel like you get the most out of it. Because, you know, after you've been to the gym or been for a run, you feel amazing, and I like to make the most of that feeling by doing it in the morning, so I get to experience it for the whole rest of the day, and start the day right. I always listen to a podcast at the gym, some kind of positive mindset stuff, and more recently as well, tried to be I've tried to get some social element into my morning routine. So this could just be when I'm walking to the train station, or on the train, or walking into the office, saying good morning to someone, or having a little conversation with someone, or chatting to the security guy at the office door. Because as a natural introvert, I could very easily just have my headphones in, focus on work stuff, and not yeah, do my journey without socializing. But I've actually really grown to appreciate connecting with the outside world. Um, and it makes me, I found it helps to manage the stresses of the day.
Yeah.
There's these little moments where I get to connect with other people. So
Yeah, no, there's
Mainly.
lots of people talk about the early morning and getting to the gym. I get that as well. I've always been a gym person, and as you said, if you get to the gym in the morning, there is a science behind it. Actually, there are people, I don't know all the. I'm not a scientist at all, but people
Yeah.
have said to me, and I've read that the actual there is a the morphines or whatever's in your body. It definitely generates when you do exercise. You feel better and you feel good. So when you do anything else, you just feel so much better about yourself. And also, there's a sense of you've kind of done it, had your shower, and you're ready to go. You don't have to go back later in the evening. There's something about working hard in your mind, knowing that sometime today I got to get to the gym. And that's also can be a bit of a pressure as well. So when you got it out of the way, it's like done it, tick. So yeah,
100%.
reminds me I got to go back to it. I've been doing evenings for a while, but I prefer mornings to be honest as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So, what about? Do you have anybody that inspires you? You got some when you think of success, or it doesn't have to be in business; could be anybody. But is there anybody comes to mind when you think of success?
So to be honest, building a business, it is mainly business people that I do look up to. I tend to go through phases where there'll be someone that I'll just consume a lot of their like all of their content. My kind of focus at the moment is on Alex Hormozy. So I listen to a lot of his podcasts at the gym. Um, he is painfully logical and to the point and kind of no crap, but I really love it. Like a lot of it's yeah, lots of light bulb moments have gone off at the gym. There we go. Yeah, lots of light bulb moments at the gym listening to his stuff. So he's probably at the moment the person that would come to mind when you think of
One of the
success.
best in the business. So if you're going to listen to somebody, he's on my headphones at the moment in the gym as well. I do a lot of audio books. It seems like a perfect coming together when you're in the gym working out, and at the same time you're learning something. You got captured mind for an hour or whatever. It works for me as well. I know some
Yeah.
people don't like audiobooks, but I find it a really good use of time to do those two
So
things together.
yeah, because normally you'd think you'd listen to the gym because that would get you into listen to music because that gets you in, gives you the energy and stuff. But I've actually found I get the same effect from listening to podcasts. It
Yeah, I
keeps me
do.
engaged whilst I'm
Yeah.
doing a
It
workout.
makes you inspired as well because you hear good stories and positive stuffs. Somebody's done well, how he started his gym business and blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
it fires you up for the whole day. I find it. I love it. I love the audiobooks, so I'm hooked on them. So yeah, really good, excellent.
And I like his philosophy as well. Like his philosophy of, believing that all of your problems can be resolved by learning a skill and that all skills can be learned.
Yeah,
It's kind of like this growth mindset thing. So when I'm, trying to do something that I've never done before, like even this podcast, for example, it it helps me to realize that you just got to take the first step and every time you do it you get better and better. So
absolutely, absolutely. People say I was a natural, but it might take me 30 years to become natural.
exactly.
It's like when you speak in public, people say, "Oh, but you're gifted," but they don't see the 30 years of how many years you've put into it to get to that stage. It's like people say it took me 30 years to be an overnight success. It's like there's a lot of work going into stuff. It doesn't happen just like that. Even the best speakers, they must have been rubbish when they first did it. You just got to practice. But as you said,
100%.
it can be learned. Why can't you?
But that's one of my favorite things to do actually. So when you see someone who creates content or you see one of their videos on social media and you think wow that they're really good at what they do and you go onto their page and you scroll to the very beginning and you see they're a bit awkward and they're not really articulating themselves very well and the lighting's all funny and that is like it's just proof that everyone has to start somewhere.
Start
And I find
somewhere.
that motivating because it can be really daunting when you're doing something for the first time or you're trying to learn a new skill. And I always appreciate those kind of little reminders that the people you look up to were once students.
That's it. I always say to people, do you think Roger Federer was good at tennis when he first hit the ball? Maybe he was 8 years old or something. It was absolutely rubbish.
Yeah.
He probably couldn't hit the ball over the net for the first, few weeks or whatever. But it's about, do you put the effort and do you put enough time into it? You're going to become, no master did it, were brilliant when they first started. It's impossible. You just can't be, can you? It's just, you've got to put the hours. So where do you see yourself over the next? So you said next year, focus really on quality customer service. Where do you see yourself maybe over 5 years?
So the next challenge for me and for the business is to build a brand. So that's something again that I've never done before. Um, we have grown the business to date based on word of mouth, based on, you know, paid advertising, and the next step really is to build a brand. And the way I see that in the beginning is by connecting with our current customer base through means of social media, email marketing, or email newsletter to build a more of a connection with our customers so they can see a bit of personality behind the brand. There's a lot of really passionate people who work really hard to provide the service that we do. And I think we don't do a great job at the moment of sharing our journey with customers. I think sometimes they might just think we're another uh, big company or
True. Yeah.
whatever they think. So I want to get more of that enthusiasm and passion and personality across with our current customer base, so that A, they may refer us to more people, and B, we can increase our lifetime value by increasing the retention rate and the connection that we have with customers.
Brilliant.
And as part of that brand, we want to show that we're on a mission to build the most trusted home services provider in the UK. So that's something that we really want to get across, bring customers along with us on that journey. And I think if we can lead with that, um, then I'm sure if we can grow along the way, then that will be excellent. But that's kind of our real mission.
Yeah. Have you heard of the book, The Membership Economy?
I've not. It
I'm
sounds
gonna,
interesting.
yeah. Outside of this, I'm gonna send you a link to it. Absolutely, it will blow
Please
your mind
do.
when you read it. And given the journey you're going on,
Please do.
and because you've got a kind of a customer, that kind of membership base, it is, when
Absolutely.
you read it, it's going to be talking to you like this is the book that was written just for me. And it gives
Yeah,
loads of different ideas about growing membership bases and loyalty and up. Brilliant book, brilliant book. Changed my way of thinking. Again, I read it in the. I say I read it, listened to it in the gym. Then I
yeah,
bought the physical book because I realized there's a lot of things I need to go back over. So I
yeah.
bought the physical book so I can go back over it. But the audio, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant book. So yeah, yeah, recommend that one.
My next read sorted. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, get that on audio. You love it. Um, so what about in terms of staffing? You talked about building team. Have you got any lessons you can share about, you know, employees? It can be a tough gig. A lot of people, particularly in construction, or in the trades, they're one of the biggest complaints people make is, oh, I can't get the quality of the people. They let me down. They don't have the commitment I have. How do you get around that problem?
Uh, well, I mean, to that particular comment, I think you need to understand, and I kind of understood this again from listening to um, the kind of content creators online and Gary V, that people aren't going to have the same commitment that you have as the owner of the business. So I think that's kind of a basic understanding to have. But uh, one of the things that I've really focused on this year is leadership over and above management. And it's really opened my eyes because and knowing what I know now, I can see where I went wrong in the past. Because in the early days of building this business, we had many people challenges, and people challenges were probably the biggest challenge at one point when we grew from, because for 3 years it was just me uh, and someone that I co-founded the business with, who's no longer involved. So we didn't have employees for a few years. So and we relatively quickly went from 0 to 20, 25 people. And I guess the key lessons that I now hear over and over again from the, really successful people is that praise is a better motivator than punishment. So yeah, positive reinforcement is much better than kind of telling people off.
Absolutely.
And leadership rather than management. So if you put the right people in the right jobs and then set the vision, set the target, set these expectations, set the standards really high. Good people will like high standards because it will give them a something to work towards. And brilliant people love pushing themselves and working towards a big target. So I think that having the right team is key. And then rather than managing those individuals, trust them to get the job done, set the vision so everyone's pointing in the same direction, and then make sure you don't forget to tell everyone well done when they're doing a great job day in, day out. And
Yeah,
that's what's really worked for us in this last year and has seen us have our best year yet.
brilliant. Yeah, reward and recognition, huge. It's so underestimated because
Yeah.
in the when people talk about financial crisis, cost of living and whatever, a lot of employers focus so much on pay. Yeah, there might be that pressure around pay, but you can almost never pay people enough. I mean, who would say, I don't want a pay rise? It's kind of, but but what people say when they come home is the bit that people forget. When they come home and say, "Oh, my boss doesn't care," or they never say thanks, or it's those soft things that make people look for a new job. It's not just the pay. If it was just the pay, everybody's looking for a new job all the time. But it's the lack of recognition that so often, as you said, makes people. That's what makes people think, what, I'm going to go and work for myself, or I'm going to go and do something else. But praise makes people feel, what, I'll break a leg for this company. Um,
But it makes a huge difference. But I mean, I just want to say I'm still very much a student in that area. So yeah, it's constantly a work in progress and
Yeah, well, you might be young in age, but in terms of business, you've done a lot and done really well. You know, it's only 4%. This is something when I teach business owners, 4%, it's only 4% of business owners in the UK ever get to 1 million turnover. So out of 5 million businesses in the UK, allegedly 5 million according to the government, 96% are not doing anywhere near a million turnover. And there's nothing wrong with that because, lots of people, if you've got a 500,000 turnover for a lot of people would be a phenomenal living and you do very well, obviously depending on your profit, but could have a great living on 250,000 or whatever. But for a lot of people, they think everybody in business is earning £1 million a year, but turnover, but it's actually quite rare. But we see the big, very big famous companies. If you took all them out, it'd be even lower than 4%, wouldn't it? If you took out the ones that are sort of the big companies that are owned by multinationals and whatever, but if you took out just privately owned, it'd be even lower. So so to achieve a business of any decent scale is you've already done really well, better than, as you said, 96% of the business population out there. Don't matter how old they are. It can be difficult to do. So you're brilliant at doing it. So you mentioned a particular author. Any other book recommendations that you would make?
uh so so going back to the praise is a better motivator than punishment. So a leadership coach I was working with gave me it's a nice skinny book actually. So it's a really good one that you can read in a weekend called The 1 Minute Manager.
Now, I was going to mention that. I knew you was going to say that.
So that actually had a really big impact. So I read that at the beginning of this year, and that had a really big impact on how I led my team. Um, Otherwise, I mean, there's obviously a lot of the kind of cliche ones of How to Win Friends and Influence People is a great book. Shoe Dog is a really good one by Phil Knight, the Nike founder. I really enjoyed that story. And another one that I read last year was The Outsiders, which is about I think it's about 8 CEOs who, throughout the history of the S&P 500, have consistently outperformed the average. And it has some kind of really interesting insights in there about how those people think differently. Warren Buffett is one of them,
Wow.
and
I'll have to get that
I
one.
probably got a bit really for where the stage of our business and where we're at. But it's a good one for looking at things in a different way.
Thank you for that. Excellent. So there's some recommendations, great ones. I haven't heard of that one, so that one's definitely going on my list. Maybe what? Who's been asking me for Christmas lists recently? I have to tell my sons, give a little hint, what book I want next. Um, so so next steps really. It's interesting. If you start your business now, would you do anything different?
Um, if I started it again now, I think I could, having learned, having known how to get to this point, I could definitely do it a lot quicker. I think I would make the tough calls and the tough decisions sooner. I think I would keep costs down, rather than having to cut costs. We, when we took out our first office lease, so our very first office, it was me and my co-founder at the time were both working from home and trying to, sometimes we'd meet up in public places, but it wasn't ideal because our roles were primarily sales. And so we had just had enough revenue to get ourselves an office. And we was looking at kind of places in between where we both lived, and uh, our budget was very limited. But there was an agency that came back to us and said they had found the perfect space. It was a basement office in Putney, underground with no windows. And for us, it seemed perfect because it was like there was no distractions. It was very basic, and it kind of gave us that sales hardcore sales office culture that we was looking for. Um, but on the way to do the viewing, we walked down Putney, Upper Richmond Road, and there's this new block of residential apartment block, but it had retail units on the ground floor, and then the first floor was office units, and then the rest was residential, all glass fronted, brand new, very high spec. And I remember pointing up there and saying to my business partner at the time, that's the dream place. What we're going to view this office, but one day we'll be up there. And then a couple of years later, we had grown, we was growing, things were going well. Financially, we were still very hard up, but the business was growing. And it was just when lockdown happened, actually. And we walked past the office and I saw a to let sign. So the tenant had obviously vacated with working from home. And I phoned the number and we was able to get a good deal for what the office was, but it was way out of our price range in hindsight. But it was a fraction of the cost that it was being rented for. And looking back, I made an emotional decision that this was my dream office. I'd walked past it for 3 or 4 years, and we took on a lease that we it was a bigger space than we needed, but the plan was that we would grow into it because we were growing. And obviously it was the wrong time to do it with the uncertainty that COVID brought about. Uh, and so we took on this lease that we couldn't really afford. And it was a brilliant moment, it was like a real kind of uh speak it into existence type thing. The fact that we had one day pointed up there and now we was actually living it. So it was a great experience in that respect. Um, and it was around the time that we realized we needed to raise funds. And so I like to think to myself, it actually helped with our first fundraise as well, because it was a nice place to invite potential investors to. So that's how I try and justify it in hindsight. Um, but yeah, we then spent the next 12 months trying to get out of the lease because it was a big overhead that we didn't really need at the time when we was kind of battling to break even. Um, and
Did you get
so
out of it?
we did, but it was costly. And so yeah, if I could do this again, I would be much more kind of bare bones cutthroat with our expenses from the beginning. because I've learned that, especially in the early days when you're growing, it really is, cash is king, and it's the bottom line that matters. You can be growing and you can be gaining customers and revenue can be going up, but if you're not making money, you put your business and livelihood at risk. And when you've got employees and
Yeah,
investors
commitments.
and suppliers, it, uh, you don't want to take those
No,
unnecessary
absolutely.
risks.
Makes sense. No, great story. Great story. And it's a great lessons as well from having the ambition, as you said, get the office, get the right environment, because one thing you can change is your environment, change the environment, changes the attitude. But then you can get over a little bit indulgent, as you said, and think, right, let's get this big office and really make waves. And then maybe we overstretched ourselves a bit there. But yeah, there's a fine line, isn't it? Because as you said, what investors, it's impressive to them because they think, oh, this company is looking good, looks professional. So it's horses for courses, but you got to be careful, as you said, because if you're stuck into a long 10-year lease, you might find yourself
Yeah,
paying some huge costs. So what
yeah.
if I gave you £100 million to invest in a business, your business or businesses, what would you do with it?
Interesting question. So if I had £100 million, wow. So I can't comprehend. I can't quite comprehend that amount of budget. I mean, having managed budgets very tightly over the past few years to uh, you know investor funds and trying to get to break even, it's that would be a huge luxury to be able to manage that kind of size. If I'm honest, based on the experience I've had to date and where we were, if you were to literally hand me a check for 100 million, I would probably put 99 million into a savings account and spend 1 million focusing on building a budget, building a brand, and try and build the very best brand that we could before investing any more into that. Because I don't think I'll trust myself in in terms of investing it. So a bit of a boring answer, but
Could be a very sensible one.
yeah.
Um, so last question really is any tips you got for there's must be young people out there that must be looking at you thinking, God, this guy's young, had the business for 8 years, he seems to be really successful, he's building this company. What tips would you leave them with to say to a young person who's looking to get into business, already in business?
Well, I think, take the risk whilst you are young and don't have too many responsibilities. Um, I was able to take the risk when I started this business. I was living at home with parents. I had a roof over my head. I was fortunate in that respect. And so I was able to, I think I thought it was going to be quick and easy. 3 months in, my savings had dried up and I had to get a second job at the local Marks and Spencer's, where I started at 5 in the morning, unloading the lorries, unloading the deliveries for the day. And I finished at 9 a.m., which allowed me to do a full day's work on the business. And the majority of that salary I had to put into the business and for the first year or two to pay for our kind of general expenses. But I was only able to do that because I was in the fortunate position that I had a roof over my head. And uh, so I think whilst you're young, if you're in that position, that's the best time to do it. Uh, I also think constant learning and self-development is really key. It's something that I've only got back into in this last year or so. For many years, I prioritized the business over my own personal development. And so I'd spend all hours under the sun at the office doing the never-ending list of tasks that the business needed to keep ticking over. And for a long period of time, I would listen to podcasts and I would read books, but that was about as much as my personal development and self-development went. This year, I've prioritized personal development a lot more. I've seen a couple of coaches for different skills and different areas of my life that I want to improve on. Done a lot of reflection, kept a journal, um, and just really started to kind of understand myself better, understand the conditions that I need to feel at my best, be most productive,
Mm,
um, be in my optimal state. And having been doing this, I now feel I'm able to operate at a much higher level than I was even 6 months ago. And it's kind of reminded me of the importance of self-development. So I think, yeah, stay curious and invest into your self-development and learning.
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. No, thank you so much. Times has flown by, but thank you so much for that interview. We've got so many nuggets in there, some book recommendations and ways of doing things, all sorts of stuff. So, Liam, it's been absolutely fabulous. Thanks very much for your time.
Brilliant. Thanks, Asari.
Thank you.